There's a lot of big traps that you can fall into when you're buying a new vacuum. And because these vacuums can cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars, there are definitely some things that you want to avoid. So I've put together a list of 4 rules that most people break when they're buying a vacuum cleaner. So let's get into it. This video is definitely not sponsored, so let's take off the ridiculous lab coat for a second and just have an honest conversation. The first big mistake is choosing the wrong vacuum type. So there are cordless vacuums, there's stick vacuums, there's upright vacuums, there's corded, there's robot vacuums. Which one should you buy? Well, really, you should base it upon your floor type. And so the biggest mistake you can make is buying a vacuum that doesn't suit the majority of the flooring in your house. Let's say you've been looking at cordless vacuums online and you like the fact that they're light, you like the fact that there's no cord, you like the fact you can take them upstairs and they're kind of easy to use, but you live in an apartment which is almost entirely covered with carpet. That is the wrong vacuum in that situation. See, cordless vacuums are great, but they are generally lacking in suction and just overall power. You've got a limited amount of runtime, and the canister can be pretty small too. So let's say you've got an apartment of 1,500 square feet. Can you really finish that in a 25 or 35-minute runtime? I think if you've got a lot of carpet, a much better choice is going to be a corded vacuum for a couple of reasons. You could pick a canister, you could pick an upright vacuum, but the main thing is that a corded vacuum is just going to have a much more powerful motor overall. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that the head is going to have typically a second powered motor in it too, and it's going to be able to agitate your carpet a lot better than any cordless vacuum will. So you got a difference in suction and you got a difference in head design. And those things can make a big difference if you've got a lot of carpet, especially if you've got fluffy pets like I do. And also, the suction is never really going to be much of an issue in a corded vacuum compared to a cordless vacuum, unless you're spending a lot of money on a cordless vacuum. And a little bit later in this video, I'm definitely going to make some recommendations for vacuums in different categories. I think if you can only afford one vacuum in your house, and let's say you have a mix of mostly carpet but some hardwood, probably a corded vacuum is going to be your best bet. But it probably shouldn't be your only vacuum. If you've got a large house like I do, you probably want to have a second vacuum, again, especially if you have a mix of carpet and hard floors. Corded vacuums can be great, especially if you're willing to spend a little bit of money, but sometimes the less expensive ones do have some issues that you should be aware of. And that is typically in an inexpensive corded vacuum like this upright, you're getting a very, very basic head, and that comes with some rather basic caveats. This might have pretty reasonable suction, however, this is not going to be very good on a hard surface, and here's why. These inexpensive style of vacuums can tend to kick sand behind them. There's no guard over here, and it kicks sand back, kind of like a cat doing its thing in kitty litter. Probably a bad analogy, but you get the idea. If you got a lot of hard surfaces, you probably want to think about something like the Shark that has a dual brush roll. And I realize that not everybody likes Shark vacuums, and that's a separate conversation, but this is much better on hard surfaces because you've got 2 rollers. You got the soft one over here, you've got another one over here, and you got a brush here, so this doesn't kick the dirt back, it actually sucks it inside the vacuum. Now the second rule that a lot of people break is buying too cheap. And what do I mean by that? What is too cheap? Well, if you buy a vacuum purely based on price, generally speaking, you're gonna get what you pay for, within reason. The no-name cordless vacuums that you see can have a pretty wide range of quality, typically at the lower end. A lot of these are under $100, and I definitely don't recommend them for a number of reasons, but the number one reason is that they just suck at pickup. And I don't mean suck in a good way, I mean they're very bad. They got poor head design, they've got these little fluffy rollers on them that don't really do much on hardwood. They definitely don't do much on carpet. The suction is really weak. The battery doesn't last that long. I found that a lot of these vacuums are actually made in the same factory, or it sure seems like it, because they have sometimes interchangeable components. And you can see prices ranging from double digits up to 3 figures sometimes for essentially the same vacuum. A lot of these are just not that good, so it might look tempting to get the cheap cordless vacuum or even the cheap corded vacuum. I would definitely caution against it unless you're just buying this for a dorm room and you're only going to be there for 3 or 4 months, something like that. You're failing out of school, that would be a great time to get a cheap vacuum. With this upright style, typically these are very difficult to get under beds because it's just a large profile. And although they do have a hose that comes off, typically it's not going to be very useful to get at anything super high because the hose is just maybe 4 or 5 feet long, realistically speaking. If you're talking about a cordless, if the battery dies, there's definitely no way you're going to get any replacement for that because typically those parts, they're just not sold. However, the main thing you should think about when getting a super cheap vacuum is the fact that they have filtration, but might not be what you think it is. So this next point is related to buying too cheap, and the rule that most people break is skipping on good filtration. What do I mean by that? In the past, a lot of vacuum cleaners had filtration, but maybe not as good as you would expect it to be. So now, a lot of manufacturers say we have great HEPA filtration. What is that? The HEPA filter is a filter that filters particles down to 0.3 microns or better, and that is typically the size of super tiny dust or an allergen. However, there are no standards or regulations when it comes to vacuum cleaner filtration. A vacuum manufacturer can claim basically anything with respect to filtration. There's no HEPA Society of Vacuum Filtration Nerds, as much as I would like there to be, at least not in the US that I know of. And even if a vacuum does have good HEPA filtration, the big problem is the canisters on inexpensive vacuums are not sealed. And that means all the dust, the particles, everything you've been vacuuming up, it just goes right back into your room. And if you suffer from asthma or have allergies, this is going to be a big problem. You might be thinking you're cleaning the room, but in fact, you are making it worse. So we've tested a lot of vacuum cleaners for filtration. We use a smoke test. Our smoke is a little bit bigger than 0.3 microns, which means that a good HEPA filter should be able to trap it. And maybe a lot of them do, but as I said earlier, if the canister in the vacuum isn't sealed, it doesn't really matter. So you really want to spend typically about $150 or so for an upright vacuum to get good sealed filtration, allergen seal, HEPA seal, whatever they want to call it. If you're buying a cordless vacuum, that's typically going to be a little bit more money. Things like Dyson's do a great job. They are very well sealed. They have excellent filtration, but you're paying a premium for those. Kenmore has a great line of allergen sealed vacuums. That means the canister is truly sealed. I think most of Shark or all of the Shark vacuums also have sealed canisters, and in our testing, they do a really good job with that. When I recommend a vacuum, if it isn't sealed, I always point that out. I'm gonna have some specific vacuum recommendations. You're gonna find them in the comments. And if you are finding this video at all helpful, get subscribed. Let me know if you wanna see more videos like this. But let's get on to the last point, number 4, which is robot vacuums are probably the wrong choice for you. Let me explain. Look, I love technology. I'm the first guy who wants to check out a new robot vacuum. I love everything about them. The promise of them is so great. You're gonna go on your phone, you're going to hit start cleaning, it's gonna go about your house, it's going to do its thing, and you don't need to do anything, right? Whoa, not so fast there, buckaroo. A lot of robot vacuums have that promise, but they don't really fulfill it as well as they should or as they promise they do. Here's the thing with the robot vacuums. You need to actually spend a fair bit of money to get one that is going to do all the things that it promises. It's going to be able to go around your rooms and it's going to be able to actually pick up the dirt and navigate the cords, navigate the toys on your floor, and then it's going to go and do some mopping as well and actually doing a credible job. If you got a lot of carpet in your house, a robot is going to be okay, but it just does not have the same suction that even a cordless vacuum does. And no matter how good they are, even with great suction, they're not really able to agitate the carpet as well as a good corded vacuum. That's just the reality of it. The motor just isn't as powerful. So I think a robot vacuum is a great second vacuum, and they do a tremendous job if you have pets. If you got a lot of hard surfaces, I think they're fantastic. They can really save you a lot of time. And the robot vacuums are changing every year. They're like phones where manufacturers come out with a brand new device every single year. That is the space that robot vacuums live in, and I love it. and hate it. I think the best robot vacuum for under about $1,000 is the Eufy X10 Pro Omni. It's really good. It has great obstacle avoidance. It does great on pickup. It has good mopping performance. It truly is a more affordable version of the high-end premium robots. Now at the higher end, so far this year, the best one that I've tested is the Dreamy X30. It's a great robot vacuum. It does everything super well. It has really strong suction. It's a great high-end robot. There are 2 great videos right over here. Get subscribed. See you in the next one.